This is the Y'all Show. Hello, welcome to the All Southern Program Monday edition. John Rawl here on the website that covers all things Southern, y'all.com. And we've got a very special guest that's joining us right here on the program. It's our Toccopola Storyteller, Jerry Short. Hello, Jerry.
John, it's good to see you right here at the new store.
It's very good to see you. Of course, there's a reason Jerry's with us today. He's a bachelor for a couple of days.
Trying that out and seeing how it, been there before, but this time may be pretty tough.
Well, we'll find out more about that. Of course, this is y'all, and Jerry comes by each week to have his Toccopola story time with us. And when we're with Jerry, we have no idea what's coming up next. But Jerry, you're with us because your wife has departed our country for what we think is only going to be about 2 weeks. It could be longer than that. She's gone to the Philippines. Unfortunately, her brother passed away. And even in a time where coronavirus is going on, you still have family duties and family responsibilities. So we wish her the best. But, man, I saw the photo she took on her trip to the Philippines where she has to go through Seoul, South Korea, and it's pretty empty.
Manila, and then on down to Ilu City. So it's what is it, like 90 provinces in the Philippines. So you just get all over and when you're there. And that's what's worrying me, that she may not, she may be retained before she comes back with the situation. If they don't get it under control in the next couple of weeks, she will be. She wasn't planning on coming back till the 16th.
But the photos you sent me, even on her plane flying overseas, she was like the only person on the plane.
Only person on the plane and the only person in the doggone boarding area, and had all the empty seats were in there. It looked like they had evacuated a theater or something for something serious had come up. But she sent me those pictures and said, hey, it's mighty easy going right now. I can just about sit where I want to sit and do what I want to do. And you know what kind of worried me a little bit when she was boarding at one place? One of the agents had told her, ticket agent, had told her, you're going on into Asia. I don't think, and this was an Asian, I believe. It said,
really?
It told her, she said, I don't think I'd go. But she said, well, my brother has died. And they were really close. My wife had sent him to college, and he had a master's in education. And she had sent 6 of her siblings to college. And they were really close, and he had sent her a message just before he died that she probably wouldn't be able to ever see him again. So she was going heck of high water, and it's high water time right now from what it looks like in these airports.
Well, looking at the statistics that came out over the weekend, there were very few cases in the Philippines, to her credit. But as you said, she had to connect through Korea, which unfortunately they've got, I think, the second most amount of cases of coronavirus, only behind China.
They do. And you just, they're right on top of China's been trying to make a kind of a move into the Philippines with floating islands and everything else. Yeah. So you don't know what's going to happen over there once you get there. You may be quarantined from now on. She got worried as she was boarding, I believe it was in Memphis, that her plane on the return flight, and they didn't tell her what was wrong with it. Now, I don't know how you would know all the way 2 weeks down, but they said might not be ready to come back. So, it may have contamination of the virus. Yeah. We don't know.
Well, it's an unfortunate time right now in our country and our world with the coronavirus. Last week, President Trump was in the news a lot with his press conferences about the coronavirus. At one point during a rally in Charleston, South Carolina on Friday night, he didn't say the whole coronavirus was a hoax, but what he was talking about was the Democrat leadership essentially making this situation seem a little bit more severe than it currently is, but that doesn't mean it doesn't become a pandemic, and it really is a real problem. But we can go back to about 7 years ago when the SARS scare was going on, and we were really concerned at that time, and we thought that this would be a pandemic as well. Luckily, that one got contained pretty early on, and that ended up not being quite so bad.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's put Vice President in charge of this pandemic if it does develop into that. Yeah. And I think Mr. Biden, who is running for president this time, was put in charge of the one you just mentioned,
Oh,
the
okay.
Sayers one. Yeah, he was put in charge, but nothing was said then. But now, with Pence, there's a lot being said. So we'll just have to see how it turns out. But luckily we're in America where we've got lots of things, but we've been a little bit too dependent, I think, on China. A lot of our medications coming out of China. My daughter and them have a compound pharmacy, and then they have an urgent care clinic, and the medicine that they make there is okay, but they're under so much restrictions. They've just had to upgrade their facility to keep their license to compound pharmacies. And you know what comes out of China? Anything could come out of China. I tell you what kind of concerns me. I feel like it might be making a chemical agent. I know that's, I'm getting out in left field a little bit.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, but I just can't trust that group over there to, they may have something they want to deliver in a warhead that would wipe everyone out, and they come in and the buildings are intact and the automobiles are intact, and hey, they lose nothing. Collateral damage is nothing but human beings.
Yeah.
And to them, that's not a lot.
Well, there is a suspicion that China created this coronavirus.
That's true. That's what I understand in a lab.
And so we have to wonder how that possibly could be, or if that's again just pure speculation.
Just pure speculation could be, but they held back the doctor that wanted to go ahead and bring it out in the open, and I think he died later. The doctor that first came out, they held him back almost a month, I believe, from coming public. So you just never know when you're dealing with some of the people around the world. But the Philippines are, they're not what you expect. It's, I usually tell stories and talks. Even with this seriousness, let me throw one little one in. You see how big I'm getting, Yeah. I just keep getting bigger and bigger because that's Philippine food. But when I was over and we got married 4 years ago, I had to have a tailored suit for the wedding. So we go to the tailor shop that my wife knew the people, and she had her own radio show over there at one time. That's the reason I do so good talking to you.
We get a lot of compliments on our Toccopola Storyteller.
Because she had her own radio show for years before she got another degree in something else. But anyway, she carried me to this tailor shop, and they took their regular 36-inch tape out to measure around my shoulders and chest.
Yeah.
And when they went measure around it, they looked at each other, and their eyes got about this big, and they said, and they kind of laughed and sniggered, and they called another person over, and the other person said, "We need another tape." It took 2 tapes to make my wedding costume, so to speak. But they got a good laugh out of it and treated me really good and made me a nice suit, and very cheap. So it almost be worth a flight over.
Yeah.
And they wait on you really good in the mall. I needed some socks, and had 7 people waiting on me. And they were all dressed to a T, and you could have ate off the floor. It was so clean.
I think you told me the shopping malls in the Philippines were
unbelievable, spotless. And my wife comes from Iloilo City, which is south of Manila. She's got another flight.
She's a Southerner.
Yeah, she's a Southerner. She's Dixie. We're going to call that Dixie. And she has got another hour and 45-minute flight out of Manila down to Iloilo City. I mean, that's where she lives, but they've got malls down there. And outside, they're manicured, and they, of course, got palm trees, and they got different type greenery than we have.
Right.
Their vegetation is a lot different, but it really keeps it manicured. They keep it manicured. Inside is just as clean. Every salesperson dresses the same. They almost look like if you've ever been in LAX and sitting there watching the Japanese stewardesses get off of an airplane, they all look like they're twins and triplets, and they all look exactly the same, and that's the way they do in the mall.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's great.
Lessons we can learn here in this country. Sometimes we get a little slack. Of course, we don't do that here on the Y'all Show.
Oh, no.
In fact, we were talking about China and how dependent we are on China. One thing China can't do is a show called the Y'all Show, and they can't have stories coming out of Toccopola.
That's right. It's hard to come out of Toccopola now. As I look around this room that we're in now, and this is what is this? Casey Jones's. What do they call it?
Water Valley's home.
Well, that's right. He lived by my grandmother.
Did
and I've actually, when a tornado hit Water Valley, I've got a Casey Jones door that come off the house that tore down from him, a French door, out of the house he lived in 1900. And they had the railroad yards there for the Mississippi Central, which later became Illinois Central, and Casey for the World's Fair in Chicago in 1900 or 1899, whichever year that was. He drove that the biggest locomotive ever built back to Water Valley, and they had to have
Water Valley, Mississippi.
And that was this line here ended down there.
Oh, okay.
You know, so we're on the same line. I didn't the Mississippi Central come as far as Grand Junction, Tennessee. Now I don't know if he came on up to.
I'm not up on my railroad history other than the Charleston and Memphis Railroad, which was built before the Civil War.
Absolutely.
And the only reason I know about that one is two of my cities that I have a connection to. But it was also the first westward expansion of a railroad in the South, at least, way back in the 1830s and 40s.
Going west.
Going west. Out of Chattanooga, it went toward Decatur, Alabama, then it scooted up through Corinth, Mississippi, then it ended up going to Grand Junction, as you said, and then ended up ultimately in Memphis.
That's the same one. It
Choo-choo.
came up from Grand Junction. Then it went south to New Orleans. And it
Not the Memphis and Charleston. That might have been
not
another.
that one. I'm talking about the Mississippi Central.
Yeah.
No, they built another one from Memphis south that paralleled the Mississippi Central, which ran into it at Grenada, Mississippi. That's where they came together. And, you know, if you go back in history in the Civil War, it's Van Buren's raid and all that stuff comes down from the train. And General Grant came on into Oxford, Mississippi, on the Mississippi Central line.
This is our Toccopola Storyteller, Jerry Short, and this is the kind of fun we have when we have him on each Monday's Y'all Show, because you never know where a conversation is going to go. We went from the coronavirus in China to talking about trains and the Civil War.
Try to put a little something. You know, I'm worried about my wife considerably, and I've asked people to pray for her, and but she determined to go, and she went. And,
what about our audience? Our audience may want to pray for your wife. Tell them her name.
Her name is Sonia Provido Short, and Provido, she's actually a quarter Chinese. Her daddy was half Chinese, and so anyway, pray for her and her family, and as they go through this hardship of her brother, who was really close. He died at 51 years old, and he was a principal in a school there with a master's degree, and they you know, I'll tell you a little bit about the way they handle a funeral over a long extended period of time. When he died about a week and a half ago, and they have to go ahead and they embalm them a little bit, probably more than we do here, because they keep the body longer. So what they do, they keep him at the funeral home, and then they took him to the school, the high school where he was, and he was in state, so to speak, there. And then from there, they take him home. But the whole school system, they build a big canopy over the front of the house, and they build a cooking area in the back of the house. And people come by for probably about 3 weeks just to look at that, which it's, and to see the body. Now, they put a crystal over the coffin, John, and as they put that crystal over that coffin, it seals it in. And so he can stay, you know, preserved, and people go by and look, and people eat, and they sit in the front and they eat, and it's just this continuation of friends and family. And it'll probably be 500 people that'll go by and look, or more, because the school had 300 in my wife's graduating class, which she finished third. I think that if she finished third in 300, I think I finished 67th a class of 68.
Woo, congratulations.
Not in the year 68. 68 personnel. But anyway.
Well, you mentioned to me, and you may have just mentioned it when you were talking about how in the Philippines they do honor the dead different than they do in this country. And you talked about the coffin is like a glass.
What it is, it's a regular coffin, but then over the body, the top of the coffin is lifted up, just like you would view at any funeral. But between the body and the top of the coffin is a crystal that they seal it off with, and they seal that off so the body's preserved and it's in there. And they do take a lot more embalming fluid, I think, when they prepare the body for burial. So you go by, and any time, night or day, you can go by and you can look at your loved one or your friend who is there, in view. It's not like, hey, you come in here from 10 in the morning to 11 and then we go bury you. It's not like that. Now, sometimes, to me, that seems like a little bit too much mourning. The close people to me that I've lost at my age, I've lost, a few. I was from a small family, which I hadn't lost that many, but I wouldn't want to wait that long as a mourning and all that stuff, because it would just kind of just really tear you up, I think. But they love each other and they're so close-knit. The families are as close-knit as anything I've ever seen.
But it's going to be a several-week process before not just her brother, but typically in the Philippines, it's a 3 to 4 week.
3 to 4 week, and with this
grieving process before a body's buried.
Right, and with this one, it's going to be even longer. It's going to be 5 or 6 weeks, and by the time it's done, and I buried him until the 14th, and he's been dead for 3 weeks.
This is the Y'all Show. Again, where else are you going to get this combination of talking about coronavirus to trains and Casey Jones to funerals in the Philippines, all because of our Toccopola Storyteller. We're not done with Jerry Short. We've got more with Jerry that's coming up right after this break. Stay tuned. More incredible information from the storyteller from Toccopola Way is coming right up. You're going to have to wait.
Well, they got food after?
No, he wants a chart. Well, you're just going to have to wait this last segment, and then you can have it, okay? We're back on the Y'all Show. I'm John Raw. Glad to have you back aboard our all-Southern program. And we've got Jerry Short, the Toccopola Storyteller, joining me right here on the all-Southern program.
There you go, John.
And Jerry, kind enough, while the wife's away, Jerry will play.
Ooh, man, I'm not going to play much, though, because I'm going I had a friend call me, and he'd been on my place, on my farm, and he told me somebody had stolen a four-wheeler, and he'd been working in Wisconsin, and I let him hunt my place, and he'd been up by the barn, and so when I get home, I got to find out what's going on. It may be some other things missing, so there's always something going on somewhere,
There's no excuse for those who have sticky fingers, and a four-wheeler is not something you just accidentally steal. I mean, it takes some effort.
It takes some effort, and all the gates were locked, and it's fenced in, and it was at the barn, and so it.
I didn't even know you had a four-wheeler.
Yeah, I had two up there, as a matter of fact.
I mean, those are fun.
One was locked up in the in a horse stall, and so I got rid of all my horses when I quit. I used to have 10 horses, and gave 4 of them to some people just south of where we are right now.
Really?
They came down and picked them up. I was cutting timber in their area around a place called Hornsby, and they came down and lassoed them, and they kicked the fences down, didn't want to leave, but they came to Henderson County, Tennessee.
And you surrendered your horses?
I surrendered my horses, which I was really glad to. They were more trouble than they were worth.
But we're glad you didn't surrender that beautiful cowboy hat.
Well, I got skin cancer. I hadn't always wore a cowboy hat, but I got skin cancer, and I was told to cover up a little bit. So when I started pipelining, when I retired, and that was so much fun on the border out at Laredo, and chasing these people that were trying to cross the border illegally.
Yeah, undocumented
history. But I started
AKA
wearing a
illegally
cowboy.
immigrants.
And I wasn't married at the time, and it always kind of helped with some reason. Girls, when you're doing the Texas two-step,
Yeah.
if you're at Billy Bob's,
Yeah.
if you're at Fort Worth, if you're at the Stockyards,
Right.
you need to wear a cowboy hat because it's kind of like roller skating without a helmet, doing a Texas two-step. So, as you know from a concert you've seen me at, I'm sure, that about all I know is Elvis. So, I could do a little Elvis dancing, but I finally had to learn a Texas two-step to get by when I was working in Texas. But, Toccopola would be a good place. Now, we square danced.
Are you even allowed to dance in Toccopola?
Square dance.
That's kind of a
You got a
Baptist
square dance.
Baptist town.
Well, it's a Bible Belt. Now, we're going, it's no doubt, but as long as you're not drinking anything besides moonshine.
Besides moonshine.
Yeah, you can, or homebrew or something like that, you can go ahead. But, I've had a lot of fun and gone a lot of places, done a lot of things. And like you say, I think it's time that I set some roots down. And so I'm going to really just relax these 2 weeks. And I should jump on a plane and go over there myself, but I don't want to get stuck over there. She has a really fine home that she built when she was working in Dubai.
And again, if you're just tuning in, Jerry's wife has gone to the Philippines for a couple of weeks. Her brother passed away, and that's a sad story in itself, but the fact that she's traveling the height of this coronavirus outbreak makes it a very scary situation.
That's true. Now, she's got a sister and brother-in-law that live in Salt Lake City, and they're not supposed to go until next week. So that's still, on kind of hold to see how. We don't know what's going to be happening by then, with this virus going around. But they're planning on going. They've already, taken off work, and they're going to retire in the Philippines. He's from Utah originally, but he likes it over there so much. Now, it's just a little bit too hot and humid for me. It's a lot like South Louisiana. I love South Louisiana, but it's so hot and humid, I need to be in Wisconsin with about 8 inches of snow, I think, right now.
You can go have all the fun in Wisconsin you want, and if you go to the Philippines or Wisconsin, and I'm too cheap to call you on the telephone, Jerry Short, our Toccopola Storyteller, something came across my desk the other day that jarred a little reminder for me to bring up to you on the Y'all show when we were next together.
All right.
I heard C.W. McCoy's great 1970 song Convoy, which of course captured the whole the phase of truckers and CB radios.
Right.
And that's really hard for those who are under age 40 to have any clue how big of a deal CB's Citizen Band Radio, how big of a deal that was for a couple of decades. So my question to you, do you still remember your handle?
Rebel, always Rebel in everything.
Rebel?
Never, always Rebel.
Okay.
Every dog, every horse I had, everything's been named Rebel.
Okay, so Rebel was your handle.
Yeah.
Did you use CBs a lot?
I tell you, I did, and then that was also my code name in the Special Forces, was Rebel.
Huh?
So I'd use Rebel on the radio.
The U.S. Special Forces, even though your name was Rebel.
Real right. It was,
Okay.
And usually I hung one of those kind of flags around in the barracks. If we're talking a few years ago, but anyway, if anybody wants to think about CBs and stuff like that, just think about if you ever saw the movie Smokey and the Bandit. They wear the CB out on that.
Which CBs probably were already kind of a pretty big deal by the time Burt Reynolds' movie came out, but when that movie came out, everybody had to have a CB.
Oh, everybody.
I mean, it was standard to have your car come from the factory with a CB radio in it.
And people would just get on there for almost nothing. And I had a band, Citizen Band, in my international, in the company I worked for, pickup, and we'd skip and get Georgetown, South Carolina, from Natchez, Mississippi, and all this stuff. They'd break in on us all the time. It got to be almost too many and too much, but it was a lot of fun, and people, carried it to some people carried it to the extreme, but I never did. I just kind of played it.
Well, it was the original chat room, if you will, and that's why, again, if you're under the age of 40, you may not even know exactly how these things work. Essentially, you went to a certain channel, and whatever you said on that channel, anybody could hear.
That's right.
In fact, that was part of the charm of getting on a channel, was to share information, all with your handle, of course.
That's right.
And there was no privacy.
Well, you didn't have GPSs and stuff like that.
No.
So you could always give a location. That's what it seemed like I did that more than anything. Hey, I'm down here. I'm on the double nickel now, which is Interstate 55. You had little codes like that. Here I'm running up to double nickel, and hey, I'm so many. I'm looking at 72 from such and such town or whatever, and might have even a call for a different name for the town. Instead of Grenada, you might say Granada, or something like that. But everybody knew who you was talking about. You always kind of tried to switch it up a little bit, and then some people tried to be funny, and then some people tried to be serious. But it was good for emergencies too. I had a situation one time with someone that got hurt in a bad car wreck, and the guy ran and got in his 18-wheeler and called the ambulance and 911 immediately.
Again, this was before cell phones, so
it's absolutely before cell phones.
The only choice you would have had
was
to
get
drive
in the car and drive 100 miles,
or
wherever.
Drive to a telephone somewhere.
A payphone on the wall, like one I noticed over here a while ago. That if American pickers come in here, they'd have a field day. But I did see payphone, and I can remember, it was a nickel, and then it become a dime. It's kind of like a Coca-Cola was a nickel. Then they put an honor box on the side for a penny when he went to 6 cents. They just screwed it on the side of the Coke book.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you've mentioned that to me before, and that's something that seems, you're talking about people stealing your four-wheelers from your farm there.
Oh, really?
How about this? Coca-Cola came out with an honor box when they raised the price from, you said?
From 5 cents to 6 cents for a 6.5 ounce Coke.
And at that time, the machines were all set up, the coins, only for nickels.
I've got one.
And so they didn't have the way to take two different types of...
They couldn't change the whole situation and put other money in it. You couldn't even make it a dime.
Okay.
So what they did, they took a little old box, red box, put it on the side of the Coke machine, and screwed it in with a Phillips screwdriver and a Phillips head screw. I remember being a Phillips head, and screwed it on there pretty tight. And then when you would put your nickel in, and they would go ahead and give you your Coke, but you would reach for that pocket and find that penny and drop that penny over there in that
honor box.
And you better do it. I mean, I can't imagine not putting a penny. I would have done without a Coke as much as I loved them if I couldn't have come up with a penny. But it's a lot changed today.
It has. Again, an honor box put out by Coca-Cola, I assume, all over the country.
Oh, I'm sure, because at that time my daddy had a fish bait shop and a service station and a cafe, and he had them put in his place, and the Coke people came around. And of course, back in those days, most towns had a bottling company. Mm-hmm. I bet it was a bottling company. If a town had 3,000 or 4,000 people, they had a Coca-Cola bottling company. Really did. And it went nationwide, I'm sure. And the first Coke ever bottle was out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. While I'm throwing out some valuable information.
Just down the street from Toccopola.
That's right, on the river. And it was a pharmacy that did it out of their Coca-Colas that people come in and they'd go flat, and they was delivering them across the river over into Louisiana or to Monroe, and they'd be flat. So a guy decided to bottle them. And he started bottling them, and he put a cap on them and hauled them over the river into Louisiana. And that was the first Coke ever bottled, the first any kind of drink like that ever bottled.
And there's some kind of museum there in Vicksburg. I've been to it.
It burned.
I think I've been to it.
They may have built it back. No, you probably have, but it did burn, and it had all kind of memorabilia in it. I used to go in there a lot because I worked around Vicksburg a lot, and they had everything, and the people talked, and they'd give you a pretty good feeling of knowing how it was done and who did it and the guy's name.
Well, last time I was in Vicksburg as a tourist, at least, I passed through there several times, but the last time I was there was for a wedding in that area, and it was in 1996, maybe. Sadly, it's been that long. But I had a funny story. Again, this is 5 years before 9/11 when I was down flying into Jackson, Mississippi, and going over to Vicksburg, I went into some of the gift shops there in Vicksburg, and I bought some kind of, I guess it could have been a replica of the Hunley, and it was a wooden Hunley, which was the first submarine from the Civil War. And I bought it, and it was something that you would take and make. It was like a model toy type deal, but it was made out of wood. And so I put it in my suitcase. I went to the airport, and when I went to go get on the plane, man, security, and this is in 1996, freaked out that I was trying to put on a bomb on a plane from Jackson, Mississippi to Nashville.
You were like the guy who took the pictures in the submarine.
Yeah.
Put in jail.
And what is this? I said, it's a little toy submarine, but it's made out of wood, and I've got to go home and make it, which I probably would never have done. I never made one of those little plastic toy things. But I thought they were so cool. Well, if they were made, I'm just not very good at that kind of stuff.
You know,
it was just funny that even in '96, people were freaking out over travel.
And, well, it's about the time that really started, checking us out. But talking about a submarine, you've heard of Grand Gulf, which is just south of Vicksburg.
Yeah.
And that's where the ruins of Windsor's there and all that kind of stuff. And there's a battle there in the Civil War leading up to Vicksburg. And if you go there, they've got a lot of stuff like antiques or this or that or cannons and things. But they actually have a submarine, a two-man submarine that had bicycle wheels in it. And it was ran by moonshiners that made whiskey. And they went underwater in that thing and across the Mississippi River into Louisiana back and forth.
This is during the Prohibition time?
That was during Prohibition time. So they built the submarine that they could do that in, and it had a pipe on it. It was up pretty high.
A periscope?
Yeah. It wouldn't move. The best I remember, it was just like a pipe welded on it. It went straight up about 10 feet or so.
Yeah.
And then they was inside this peddling and hauling moonshine across the river during Prohibition days.
That's a whole nother topic for us to talk about sometime, Prohibition, because it's hard for us to fathom in today's world where most of our alcohol laws have all been relaxed or totally thrown out the window. It was a major crime,
big time,
in the 1930s to be caught with.
It was a major crime in the Bible Belt in the 50s and 60s.
Was it really?
Because the sheriff that we had in our county and the county next to ours and next to that one would absolutely put a blackjack on the side of your head. And I know one guy told me that he was stopped one time and he thought he had a moonshine in there or white lightning, and they would hide it behind their houses or something. People would know where to go buy it from people,
Yeah.
So the sheriff saw him come out of there. So he told the guy when he pulled up, he stopped him and he said, "Stick your head out here, boy." And he said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Stick your head out here. I can't hear you." And he stuck his head out there and he hit him with a blackjack hard as he could. And then he knocked him back in there and he said, "What was that for?" He said, "That's for the bad drive you made when you come down that hill from getting that fifth of whiskey. Now give me that whiskey and move on. Law's taken care of." That was in the 50s. So
that's what they call mess us up at justice.
Yeah, that's right. We took justice in our own hands real quick.
Your father was a cop in the 50s. And
he did that just for the fun of it.
Yeah, but he probably beat up a lot of moonshining type people, right?
I might have substituted that story for him doing that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, he did. He was even a marshal in Toccopola, and when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and some people were stealing chickens one night, and they had to come to your house to get you whoever was losing their chickens. And my daddy said, "Get in the pickup and stand in the seat. It's time you went out and learned something." Here I am, I'm 4 years old. And my mama says, don't take it. But he took me anyway. But they caught the guy stealing the chickens and stuff out of a chicken house. And they put them down on a creek bank. And they whipped them with river cane. And then turned them loose and said, "Now get out of here, justice served." So, you could just about handle anything anyway.
It's a lot more of a crime today to be caught stealing chickens than even those days.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that even the chicken thief would be grateful that they got whooped
Yeah.
as opposed to spending
Oh, yeah.
10 years in jail.
I would, because I mean, stealing, and back then it was, you just handled it then and moved on. So, anyway, it was I could go on all day telling you those kind of stories, and let's see if I got.
That's why we have you, Jerry, our Toccopola Storyteller. And luckily, you got more stories to tell. Unfortunately, we're out of time with you today.
Well, unfortunately, some of them I probably can't tell on the airwaves.
Oh, come on now.
So we'll work on that.
Yeah, we'll get you to tell them that and a whole lot more. Jerry Short, again, our special guest on today's Y'all Show. Jerry, we appreciate you coming on and telling us about Toccopola and all the fun that happens in that special spot. And best of luck to your wife, Sonia. Again, prayers are welcome for her as she travels, and all those who may have to travel here in this very scary time. We hope it's going to, the fears will be subsided as much as possible, as soon as possible, but certainly want to keep her in mind. And thank you for being on today's Y'all Show with us here.
I think she's in a good place in the Philippines. If she's made it there yet, I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
But if what worries me is the in between there and here. So
a good husband.
Y'all, and please
a good husband. We'll be back on the Tuesday Y'all Show. Barbecue talk will be coming your way, plus more on politics. We've got Super Tuesday. And don't forget, if you're in places like Tennessee, Arkansas, North Carolina, also Alabama, Virginia, you can go out and vote if you're a Democratic voter in the Democratic primary. We'll be on here on Tuesday to talk about it all, y'all. Again, thanks to Jerry. We'll see you. Thanks for tuning in to Y'all Show.